Paul and Brian.
Grab your
Ready-
attention,
ready to
please,
start?
everyone.
Yell. You say, sit down.
All right. Everybody ready here?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Good morning. My name is Alan Umstead. And on behalf of the You're Not Alone ministry team, we want to thank you personally for taking time. We know you have busy schedules this time of year to learn more about mental health and the family's role in support. Today, we will be learning about the benefits of a healthy marriage and mental health risks on an unhealthy marriage. And so, but first, let's pray. Lord Jesus, thank you for bringing us together to once again help us understand the difficulties we are likely to encounter in wrestling with mental illness in the lives of our loved ones and possibly even ourselves. We know you have a unique plan for each one of our lives. Please help us to better understand and better equip ourselves to deal with both pleasant experiences as well as life's difficulties. Please give us the tools, grace, and encouragement to fight this earthly battle and win. Guide us today to an understanding of your perfect plan for our families. Amen. As we've stated previously, we're not doctors and psychiatrists and counselors, and some of us are, but most of us aren't. And we're not trying to give any medical advice. We always ask that you seek your own physician or information in terms of actual medications and treatment. At this time, I'd like to introduce Fred Sabia. Fred is a licensed mental health and actually marital therapist as well for 33 years. Fred, you don't look that old. Fred has also had lifelong struggles with high anxiety and depression himself. Fred founded and facilitated a Christian men's support group for 8 years. He has a seminary degree in theology. He has a postgraduate studies in Christian counseling and spirituality in Rome, Italy for 2 years. That must have been rough, Fred. And he was also an unpaid counseling volunteer for men at the Winchester Rescue Mission for 5 years. At this time, I would ask that you please welcome Fred.
You, Alan, thank you much.
Get this out of your way, Fred.
It's a joy for me. My heart is full. I love not only imparting knowledge, which is wonderful in itself, but I like to have fun. As I often say, I am my mother's son. My mother was just a wonderful, I can't think of a better mother. And she had a wonderful sense of humor, a quirky sense of humor. And she, raising 5 kids by herself when my father worked 2 jobs, she kept things not only secure and loving, but fun. It was, you never knew what was going to come out of her mouth in terms of fun. That being said, I want to start with you today in a very unorthodox way. I doubt anybody else has done this at one of these seminars. I want to do a gospel rap with you, and you're going to, and whether you like it or not, you're going to participate and say the refrain. So before I get ahead of myself, let me say that I used to do this by memory because 35 years ago, to be exact, 1990, I learned this gospel rap. It is by Bob Cluse of a Christian group ministry called Beacon Street. I don't even know after all these years if they're still in existence, but I have to give credit to the man who wrote this. It's a gospel rap about the prodigal son. And this is the way it works. I'm going to teach you the refrain. Oh, I forgot to put down 2 times. Each time I cue you, and right from the start, we're going to start with this. Open, can most of you see this?
Yes.
Try to get in a position where you can see it. And then once you learn it, it's easy. Open your eyes. It suits you well to be wise. You don't know what you got till it's gone. And then you say it a second time. And then I do the verses. And I'm going to have to read because, like I said, I memorized this. I used to do it for teenagers by memory. That was 35 years ago. I don't know by heart. Okay, so without any further ado, I am going to get in character, but I want to elicit from you what you think is better. I'm going to get into rap mode. So I have 2 hats. You tell me which one you think is better.
That one.
That one? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, oh, by the way, I brought some extra copies of this for people who want to maybe bring it to their own ministries, you know. I think of different youth pastors and stuff who might really like this, but you got to give credit to the author, Rob Cluse and all of that. All right. So let's get started. Let's do this so we can get into the meat of but we're going to have fun first. We're going to have fun first. So let's practice. First, slowly. Open your eyes. It suits you well to be wise. You don't know what you got till it's gone. 2, open your eyes. It suits you well to be wise. You don't know what you got till it's gone. And then I will do a verse, and then I'll cue you for the next time. Now, as you know, now I don't know a single rap song. I don't even like rap, but gospel rap, but it goes fast. So when it comes time for you to say it, it's got to be open your eyes. It suits you well to be wise. You don't know what you got till it's gone. Open your eyes. It suits you well to be wise. You don't know what you got till it's gone. Okay, so this is the story of the prodigal son, which I'm guessing 99% of you are familiar with. It's about a man had 2 sons, and the younger son came to him and he said, you know, the inheritance that I'm due, I want to get it from you before you die. And then he goes off and he's, and you know the rest of the story, right? Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's get started. I got to use the sunglasses because rappers, and I wore my sneakers today. Rappers wear sneakers and hats backwards. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Open your eyes. Suits you well to be wise. You don't know what you got till it's gone. Open your eyes. It suits you well to be wise. You don't know what you got till it's gone. A father of 2, he didn't know what to do. The younger had approached him and said, you love me, it's true. You know the money I'm due? Cough it up before you are dead. With a tear in his eye and a heart asking why, the papa handed over the dough. After 2 days went by, the boy walked out of sight, believing he had someplace to go. Right on. Open your eyes, it suits you well to be wise. You don't know what you got till it's gone. Right on. Open your eyes, it suits you well to be wise. You don't know what you got till it's gone. He followed the road till he put down his load. It was party time wherever you go. You, my friend, he was told, while the money had flowed, but it ended when the boy became pope. Lost in his pride, now he had to decide what a runaway had ought to do. A job was supplied. He fed pigs on the side. He's a farmer now, through and through. Now it's you. Open your eyes, it suits you well to be wise. You don't know what you got till it's gone. Get down. Open your eyes, it suits you well to be wise. You don't know what you got till it's gone. In the midst of the stink, he had started to think of the day he left his papa butt in the dough. So before he could sink into the stuff the pigs drank, he arose and looked back no more. He intended to say in a sorrowful way he had wronged and he wanted to right. He would ask for some pay if he worked every day. He was planning as he come into sight. Now you. Open your eyes, if you well to be wise. You don't know what you got till it's gone. Very good. Open your eyes, it suits you well to be wise. You don't know what you got till it's gone. His father he ran till they met hand in hand. They embraced and they were glad for the day. The welcome was grand as they struck up the band. The traveler had come home to stay. From the field he could hear all the dancing and cheer. The older son he wanted to know why the calf disappeared. He thought it quite weird. These things had never happened before, right? Open your eyes, suits you well to be wise. You don't know what you got till it's gone. Open your eyes, suits you well to be wise. You don't know what you got till it's gone. With the servant unable to lure him to the table, Papa came a pleading outside. And that's where the fable winds up so unstable. We don't know what the sun will decide. The boy was returned from the death he had spurned. He was lost, yeah, and now he was found. We hope you have learned that mercy ain't earned. It's given and it's meant to abound. One more time. Open your eyes, suit you well to be wise. You don't know what you got till it's gone. Open your eyes, suit you well to be wise. You don't know what you got. Thank you for your participation. All right. Well, it's inevitable after you get the fun stuff out of the way, we got to get into some serious stuff here. Let me say,
about being, they see this guy rapping, and it's a Jesus freak song. That's what you're gonna do.
It is. It's a Jesus freak song. Yeah. As an introduction to my talk, through my own experience of going to so many seminars over 33 years as a counselor, when there's a PowerPoint or when the handouts are given before the talk, I always found it distracting. I'm looking at the handout or I'm looking at the PowerPoint. I'm not listening to the presenter. So I'm going to be drawing from two significant documents, but I have handouts if you want to take them home. So there's no need for you to take notes. It's all here. All right. Well, again, I said I am my mother's son, so I had to come up with a first fun line. There are three rings to marriage: the engagement ring, the wedding ring, and the sufferer ring. Okay, two more introductory items. The DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, which is the therapist Bible, especially for, it's so insurance driven. You have to put down diagnoses to get insurance reimbursement. A lot of therapists don't even like or refer to the DSM, especially if they don't take insurance like me. But the DSM is updated periodically. I honestly don't know if they set out to do it every 5 years, 10 years. But anyway, over the years, I get an email saying the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual is being updated in the next few months. I've come to the conclusion that the next iteration of the DSM should include marriage as a mental illness. I'm sorry, that is very facetious, but I draw that from my work with couples, hundreds, perhaps thousands over 33 years, where mental illness so permeates and affects and handicaps marriage that it just can't be denied that mental illness comes into play. As a matter of fact, some years ago, as they were talking about the next DSM, am I going outside the camera here, or should I just stay at the podium, Dan?
You're good.
Okay. I had read an article where the contributors, because there's many contributors It's not written by one or two men or a committee of three. It's many different. That they actually were getting to the point where they were contemplating and debating whether in the next update of the DSM to include relationship disorders. It hasn't happened yet, but I would not be at all surprised if in the next version, disorders of relationship appear. And then one more introductory story, and we'll get into the meat of today's seminar. My ex-wife had a childhood friend, a boy, wasn't romantic, but she stayed friends with him for life. He became a Navy chaplain, and his superiors approached him saying they were alarmed at the rapid rise of problems in marriage and among Navy families. Therefore, they assigned him, they said, we're sending you back to school to get a master's degree in marriage counseling. And he would occasionally, knowing that I was a marriage counselor, he would occasionally ask me questions about the profession, kind of like it took on a little bit of a mentoring role. They lived on the West Coast, so it's not like we met in person. He would send me emails and stuff, and they always sent us Christmas cards, and he would write a little note in there. Anyway, years passed, and we got a Christmas card from him in which he wrote the following. After they wrote a nice note, Christmas cheer, P.S., he says, Fred, I've been doing this marital therapy for Navy personnel for several years now, and frankly, I don't know how anybody stays married. All right. Let's get into some research about mental health. Oh, wait a minute, let me put this aside. This is distracting me. Excuse me a second. Some research about mental health in America as a preface to our topic, our specific topic. In a 2021 survey conducted by the newspaper USA Today, 9 out of 10 Americans agreed with the statement, quote, I'm having trouble staying sane. It's all we can do to keep our heads on straight. The pandemic, political chaos, uncertainty about the economy, uncertainty about the future, and so on. So mental health in our time, and specifically in the last X amount of years, again, including the pandemic, mental health problems have been on the rise in a meteoric level. Secondly, the prestigious Journal of the American Medical Association, popularly known as JAMA, cited a study that indicates an exponential increase in anxiety and depression. People of each generation in the 20th century were 3 times more likely to experience anxiety and depressive disorders than people of previous generations. Third, in a study involving over 200,000 incoming college freshmen, students reported all-time lows in mental and emotional stability. In fact, psychologist Robert Leahy pointed out that the average youngster today exhibits the same level of anxiety as psychiatric hospital inpatients in the 1950s. So what we're seeing here, my friends, is an, like I said, meteoric rise in mental illness. Now, I ask you, what does all this have to do with marriage today and in the future? And my answer is everything. Okay, so this is one of those good news, bad news things. First, the good news. And this is according to extensive research, which is called meta-analysis, which is defined as an examination of data from a number of independent studies about the same subject in order to determine overall trends. And I want to talk to you now. I said good news, bad news. This is the good news. The top 5 benefits of creating a happy marriage. This article, they chose to do it this way, so I'm going to go by the article. Counting down from number 5 to number 1, and there will be a quiz at the end. As I count down, please be considering what you think number 1 might be. Hint, the word is embedded somewhere in numbers 5 through 2. I'm going to say the word that is the answer to the quiz, so pay close attention. And now I'm going to read you highlights of this article. The top 5 benefits of creating a happy marriage, and forgive me ahead of time for reading from the article and having my head down. The hard work of creating a thriving, passionate marriage is worthwhile. Whatever you go through, however difficult the road ahead appears to be, we really want to distill some hope for you today so that you stay committed to creating something beautiful with your spouse. Marriage is not easy, but we want you to know it is worthwhile and it is worth the effort that it takes. So, the top 5, I told you I was going to count from 5 down to 1. Number 5, personal growth. The research consistently shows that a happy marriage enables spouses to grow both individually and as a couple. This comes through mainly in 3 different fronts: personal goals, resilience, and growing together. And I'm going to read some of my highlighted material. Personal goals. It's easier to meet personal challenges when you know someone has your back. Married people often report that the level of support they get from their spouse is the strongest determining factor in how well they achieve their goals. Really, it's just common sense. 2, resilience. So this is a subset of personal growth. First was personal goals. Second is resilience. A really cool study, that's how it reads. I didn't add the word cool. A really cool study from 2011 found that overcoming stressful circumstances with your spouse early in the marriage makes you far more able to deal with stress later in life. In this study, high marital satisfaction enabled couples to build up resilience to stress, which helped them adjust to stressful life events such as the transition to parenthood. This is brilliant. Life throws all of us curveballs, but when you create a happy marriage, you create a safe harbor. I love that expression. You create a safe harbor, a place you can come to in order to recharge and renew yourself for facing those challenges. I once went to a conference. It was neuropsychology, and the presenter said, and I don't know how they figure these things out, but it resonated with me. He said, the brain is hardwired for safety. So is it any wonder that in a world filled with conflict on nationwide and international, but even conflict between people need, I've emphasized this in my work with couples and individuals: safety, mental, emotional, and in a good marriage, can find that safe harbor. So that was number 4. Number 3, growing together. We're still on the subject of healthy marriages and the benefits thereof. Growing together. When your marriage is going well, you start to embody the traits you admire each other, allowing you both to grow as people. High satisfaction with your marriage and with your spouse naturally leads to admiration of your spouse. In a well-functioning marriage, both spouses therefore sharpen, in quotes, each other and help make each other better. As the saying goes, this is from the book of Proverbs, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. So when a marriage is healthy, you're making each other better. We'll get to the unhealthy, naturally. And when couples are constantly at war, you're tearing each other down and you're diminished. So you take these 3 together, facilitating personal goals, fostering resilience against challenges, and promoting personal development, and you can really see how a happy marriage fuels personal growth. That's a huge blessing that comes from creating a happy marriage. And I want to focus on this word creating. This is work. As an artist sets out to create something, he or she doesn't just breeze through it. It takes skill, the building up of skills. It takes trial and error. It takes taking risks, but they're well worth it if you establish that safe harbor. I don't know about you, but on a sad note, I haven't encountered very many. I don't know what the percentages would be. I don't have data on that. But people who report that their marriages are more healthy than unhealthy, I'm afraid to say they're in the minority. Number 4. Now, have you been listening closely? I said I'm going to ask you, and it's not a test. I'm going to ask you what you think number 1 is. Wait a minute now. Hold on. Let me get myself together here. Where did I leave off? Number 4. High marital satisfaction has positive effects on both physical and mental health. This happens through various routes, and I'll go a little more quickly through this. Lower stress. Couples in a happy marriage will feel lower level of stress, meaning they will benefit from low blood pressure, reduced risk of heart disease, better sleep, greater resistance to illness, and stronger mental health. It actually strengthens your immune system. Support. Being married gives you the incentive to look after yourself physically, so you're likely to make good health and lifestyle choices. How many of us know people who grow old alone, who don't take very good care of themselves? That's especially true it's more true of men than of women, although I'm sure it happens to some women. Men adopt some very unhealthy lifestyle habits, and once again, I'm a poster child for that because I smoke cigarettes, and that's a terrible thing to do, but it's something I enjoy, and I acknowledge that I'm not a stupid man. I know that this can shorten my lifespan, but I do it. Finances. Married couples are often more well-off than single people, allowing them to look after themselves more easily. There's another thing I'm a poster child for. And I know many divorced people, men and women, whose financial stresses in their life are just overwhelming because they don't have a partner who brings in a second income. They don't plan their retirement together. Happiness. Let me say that again. happiness. This is the fourth thing under health. Greater happiness and life satisfaction also protect against mental health challenges like depression and anxiety. Number 3, longevity. Research shows that marital satisfaction can increase lifespan and reduce mortality. This has been found to be true of both husbands and wives. Why? Researchers who looked into this back in 1995 argue that having a spouse with whom you have a strong bond will cause you to make healthier choices and look at. This is a repeat of what we talked about in terms of health. Marital satisfaction also increases happiness, there's that word again, and guards against mental health troubles. Number 2, life satisfaction and purpose. A happy marriage is also considered the strongest predictor of overall life satisfaction, which refers to whether you believe you have lived your life well, are happy with the choices you've made, and are hopeful about the future. For our listeners who are Christians, this should particularly resonate since the picture of a husband and wife is a mirror of the relationship between Christ and his church. That is so central to our faith. Of course, marital satisfaction is also strongly linked to a sense of purpose and meaning in life. A study in 1996 found that intimacy in marriage is the strongest predictor of both life satisfaction and having a sense of meaning in life. And the number one benefit, according to research, is, does anybody have any guesses based on the words that I said to you? You were listening well. You win the prize. If I had a prize, I'd give it to you. Happiness and the consequences thereof. Marital happiness is very strongly linked to overall levels of day-to-day well-being. In fact, a good marriage, it is often considered the strongest predictor of global happiness. For example, a study in 1988 collected data on over 1,500 participants about their overall happiness and level of happiness in specific areas, including marriage, work, finances, community, and health. They found that marital happiness was more strongly linked to overall happiness than any other factors. As a follower of Jesus Christ, I believe our ultimate joy is in God. But don't forget that one of the primary places God gives us to discover and enjoy this is within marriage. But there's no more to happiness than just, forgive me. But there's more to happiness than just feeling good. Happiness goes on to have positive outcomes across all areas of life. Happy people are more optimistic, confident, sociable, kind, adventurous, leading them to be more successful in many areas. Specific benefits of happiness include 5 things: greater success at work and higher job satisfaction, higher income, more friendships and higher quality relationships, better physical health, improved mental health. So let's wrap this good news up with, so there you have it. You may be in the trenches fighting for your marriage today. I hope this helps you to be reminded of why you are fighting for your marriage and to keep it moving forward. And this is one of the things that I told you. I have handouts. You didn't need to take notes for it, and you take a copy home. Okay. There's the inevitable bad news, because this presentation is about marriage and mental health, including mental illness. For this segment, I will be using a blog published in March of 2023 by the author Claudia Elsig, MD, entitled, Can Marriage Wreck Your Mental Health? And she answers her own question with this momentous conclusion. A marriage can wreck your mental health. Golly gee, who would have thunk? Dr. Elsig outlines 7 categories to back her research. Oops. I'm sorry, I've got the wrong thing here. Give me a minute. That's the blog. I held up the wrong thing. So, can marriage wreck your mental health? And she outlines several ways. Marital conflict is number 1. Ongoing unresolved conflict is harmful. When there are continued arguments in a relationship, research shows it restricts the processes that lead to good mental health. I'm going to just do an aside here. Over the course of my career, I've done what I go right to the top. The researchers, John and Julie Gottman, out of Seattle, I'm guessing they're retired by now. They've been at it for half a century. They call it the Love Lab. They worked out of I think it was a university out there, and they were allowed to do this program. And they identified, I mean, it was scientific study. They worked with tens of thousands of couples. And they were able to predict at over an 80% success rate which of the couples they worked with and did studies with were going to divorce. And it was based on information that they distilled, as I said, from tens of thousands of couples. 4 things, and they called them, there's another Christian reference, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Criticism, defensiveness, stonewalling, and contempt. And they called criticism the gateway drug. Now, as human beings, part of our flawed nature, even the most well-intentioned, even the most mature, even the most loving people criticize. And when you live in close quarters with someone, you know the old saying, you never really know someone until you live with them. There's friction, there's conflict. I sometimes liken the dynamics of marriage to the workings of an engine. Let's say, for the sake, we won't go into the pilot, our pilot friend Dan here, and talk about that's above my pay grade. How I don't even know how an airplane gets off the ground, to tell you the truth. But
Money.
yeah, automobile engine. Think of all the moving parts. Think of all the metal on metal and all the friction and the electrical things firing, because you start the car and it's electrical spark. And what they say from the time I was a kid about how to extend the life of your engine and therefore of your car. Change the oil frequently, they said, and get what do they call that when they replace the spark plugs?
Tune-up.
Tune-up. Get a tune-up. So I'm getting way off here because I didn't even write this down or plan to say it, but here's what I tell my clients, and I work with them on. They come in for a first session. They hit the ground running with criticism. And the reason why they call criticism the gateway drug is when you're criticized, what's the first thing you're inclined to do as in human nature?
Defend yourself.
Thank you, Andy. I knew I could count on you. Defend yourself. Then that in turn can lead to something that men do more often than women, and that is they stonewall. talk to the hand. And then something that I believe, and I think you won't disagree, doesn't belong in any loving relationship, but it happens a lot, is contempt. I call contempt criticism on steroids, or to say it more accurately, criticism that is laser focused in a personal way. You're just like your father. He was mean, and you're mean. You treat me mean. You treat our kids mean. You're no good. That's contempt. That has no place in a loving relationship. But we do it. We're sinners. We're imperfect. We're insecure. We attack. I read a sentence when I was in graduate school. I started graduate school in 1989. I still remember this. The dynamics of attack and counterattack is ancient in human affairs. And that creeps into marriage with the person you live the closest to. Okay, let's pick up where we left off. So the first one was, this is the first of 5, marital conflict. And I went off my research, and so I'm not going to bore you with more reading under that. Let's go to number 2. Adult attachment. Just as bonds form early in life between infants and parents, romantic love also represents an attachment process. By the way, even before I continue this, a really fascinating sort of subset of studying psychology is attachment theory. Because, if Freud got one thing right, and Freud was brilliant, but he was also kind of kooky, that he said that your personality and your patterns are in place by age 5. I think that's a little bit of a stretch, but anyway, he was onto something there. Attachment style with parents. So adult attachment. Importantly, adult attachment predicts mental health. So what is attachment? Attachment theory explains how individuals form emotional bonds to meet basic needs, and how psychological disturbances such as depression are linked to this disruption of these bonds. And a major one is insecure forms of attachment in infancy impact closeness and emotional intimacy in adult relationships. This can make certain individuals more worried about being underappreciated or abandoned by their romantic partners. And early in life, now you're not aware of this as a real small child or, a toddler, but fears of abandonment run very deep in human nature. And you can grow up with that. And I'm sure you've all seen, but not only me as a therapist, but I've seen in my own life. I had an insecure attachment style. And when I started dating in my teens, I was very, very vulnerable to abandonment, like a girl breaking up with me and stuff like that. I couldn't have explained it at the time. Later, I came to see that I had an insecure attachment style. So what does this mean for marital psychopathology? Well, if you have if a person in a marriage, whether the husband or wife or both, have an insecure attachment style, well, they're going to be constantly making bids for reassuring that you're not going to abandon me, because that's the most terrible thing that can happen. So why does attachment style matter in marriage? The interaction of 2 individual attachment style has implications for a trajectory of a relationship. For example, an insecure, disorganized spouse is difficult for anyone to be married to. Their relationships are hectic and unstable. This type of person is erratic and complicated, and often has mental health issues of some sort. Being married to this type of person can wreck your mental health. Number 3, out of 5, childhood trauma. This is big. I'll tell you, in the course of my career, when you start off in any career, you start off on the bottom rung. Graduate school is great or a PhD is great, but until you start applying it to real life situations, it's an eye opener. And I forgot all about time management. Are we taking a break today?
It's up to you. Sure.
It's really up to you. Yeah. If you don't have like a second segment, you could wrap up and then take questions, or however you want to do it.
My inclination is to go straight through. Okay. Sorry about that. I'm supposed to be the timekeeper. Childhood trauma. Without treatment, childhood trauma continues to affect a person in adulthood. For example, a person who's experienced childhood trauma may be passive-aggressive, or aggressive in their communication. They can be indirect and apologetic, or dishonest, blaming, and controlling. These behaviors put a great deal of strain on a relationship. Unhealed trauma is a dynamic force in an intimate relationship, often creating emotionally fueled disagreements, misunderstandings, and doubt. For a partner on the receiving end, it can be incredibly challenging. And number 4 is something I've done a seminar on before here and at Braddock Street United Methodist Church, and that is loneliness. Let's read about that. And I have some case histories to end with, so all the dryness of this research material will end with a couple of hard hitters. In marriage, loneliness happens when a person feels their partner doesn't understand their needs and wants. A lack of attention increases the risk of mental health issues. This could be because a spouse is a workaholic and never at home, or it could be more sinister deliberations, such as being ignored by a narcissist. I could do a whole separate seminar on the rapid rise and the severity of narcissistic personality disorder in our society, but that's for another time, perhaps. Feeling lonely in a marriage has consequences. When a person is lonely, they're less likely to engage in healthy activities and behaviors, such as exercising and eating healthy. Loneliness affects sleep, increases stress, lowers self-esteem, and causes a spiral of negative thinking. Oh, sorry, there weren't 5, there were 7. Bear with me. Toxicity in the guise of love. Extreme events and circumstances do obvious damage to mental health, such as domestic violence. But in a marriage, there are also lots of subtleties at play that can chip away at mental health. So toxicity, and they go into talking about narcissists. I'm not even going to continue all the stuff that I yellow highlighted, because this is becoming overkill. I will just end this toxicity with this statement. With a narcissistic spouse, you will likely experience emotional abuse, verbal abuse, general bad behavior, silent treatment, and I would add, as I'm going to cite in a case study, physical abuse. 6 is the imposition of relatives, and it talks about in-laws, and as my ex-wife used to say, in-laws and outlaws, and that can have an effect on marriage and on mental health. And lastly, parenting differences. It's a fact that children add stress to a marriage. Although parenting disagreements are expected, they can create chasms in a relationship when unresolved. Parenting differences can lead to an emotional and physical disconnect, a lack of trust, and behavioral changes. Disagreement about parenting puts a relationship at risk and negatively impacts the children. I want to stop there and tell you one anecdote. I'm thinking of one couple in particular, but I've heard this in the counseling office dozens of times. And the example I'm going to give is the example where the man is the one who ends up frustrated. There are times when the women do, but as we know, by and large, even though society's gone through some continental shelf shifts, the mother is the primary caregiver, even when she works outside the home. But here's an example from my own work. So you have the wife who is working a job, raising 3 children, makes dinner when she comes home. The husband doesn't help out that much and needs to be given instructions almost, which is kind of pitiful when you think about it. But the wife reaches her, the end of her rope and she says, I need you to take more part in parenting and take care of these kids. Okay, honey, what do you want me to do? Tell me. The man needs directions. I want you to bathe the kids at least 4 out of 7 nights. I'm exhausted. Oh, wow. So he's bathing the kids. Sorry, you gals. But the woman comes in and starts criticizing him about how he's doing it, what he's doing wrong. And the man is deflated and says, you asked me to do this. All right, I'm not doing it perfectly to your specifications. Like she might be very controlling or OCD. That comes into marriage. Obsessive compulsive disorder. That could be a different, maybe we've had seminars on OCD. And he feels completely deflated, invalidated, and feels that his wife doesn't see him as competent to give his kids a bath. And so he withdraws. And then they're back to a worse place because she asked him, he tried, she criticized, now he's backing off everything. Okay, that brings us to the end. The last word on this is repairing mental health broken by marriage. Any person can reach a point in their life where it seems they no longer go on or face significant challenge. They can no longer go on or face significant challenges. Traumatizing childhood experiences, losses, separations, psychological and physical abuse, and chronic stress can all be reasons for developing fears, depression, burnout, addictions, and eating disorders. Okay, so that's another thing I have a handout for. All right, we're coming to the end. Oh. I'd like to end in 2 ways. First one, then the other, with a couple of case studies, not lengthy, just case summaries. And then let me give the backstory to what I'm about to tell you. It's pretty simple, but I want to tell you. When I wrote and delivered my seminar on loneliness, I determined that the best way to end would be on the subject that is perhaps, no, not perhaps, it is the most important force in human life and divine. And we get it from the divine, and that is love. So I'm going to cite a few case studies, which are quite depressing, but then I found a way to end on the note of love today. In the end, there are 3 things that last: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. So 3 case histories, summaries. So this is on the subject of addiction. And I didn't bring up addiction today until now, but as Alan and others on the leadership committee will tell you, You're Not Alone Ministries is for mental health and addictions. So this couple came in for their first appointment. It's called the intake. And the husband was reticent. He was not standoffish. He seemed timid. And so the wife went first. And in marriage counseling, that's one standard technique. You get one side of the story, and the other person is encouraged not to butt in, hear that story, and then you hear the other story. The wife went first because he was a little gun shy. The wife went on to say that her husband, sitting right next to her, had started drinking and drugging at a very young age, and if memory serves, was around 14. And though they had 2 children, the wife lamented that she felt like she had 3 children because her husband rarely fulfilled adult responsibilities or participated in parenting. She said she was exhausted and that close to leaving him. And then it happened. I turned to the husband and invited him to share. When he opened his mouth to speak, I swear to you, he sounded like a teenager. He sounded like a 17-year-old in a 35-year-old body. I could only conclude that he had stunted his brain development. And yes, the wife was right. He was more like a third child than a husband. And this would take us off, and we don't have time for it, and nor was it in my planning. But it's another thing in our time, and it's been going on for a long time, ever since the psychedelic drug revolution, the 50s, 60s, and stuff like that. The younger people start poisoning their minds with drugs and alcohol, the less pretty it looks when they become adults. We used to call arrested emotional development, but really what it is arrested brain development. It was hard work working with this couple. I don't know if they stayed together. Second case story, narcissism. I counseled a woman who was married to a man who, by her description, very, very likely had not severe narcissistic personality disorder. He was manipulative, highly controlling, mentally and physically abusive. I remember her describing one time they had this big walk-in closet, and she said something to him that threatened his control. And he took her by the arms and he shook her and he held her there. And that was not the only case of physical abuse on his part. The wife's, by the way, he refused to come to the counseling. The wife's mental and emotional health was declining to the point where he nearly had her convinced that she was to blame for his extramarital affairs. He had so brainwashed her. As I said, he refused to take part in the counseling. What he didn't refuse to take part in was several meetings with their pastor and a few of the elders, because each time they met, the man liked it, because the woman was told, as long as your husband is repentant and apologetic, you need to submit. Submit to abuse. That's godly. I don't mean to, and I'm not going to, of course, name any churches, but even pastors and elders make mistakes. Your job is to submit. Thank God this turned out to be the catalyst for her to have the strength to leave him. And what I left out of that was, I said mental and physical abuse, but how about terrorizing? He said to her, if you ever leave me, I'll kill you. I'll kill you. that bears no resemblance to marriage. She wasn't a wife, she was a captive. And lastly, schizoaffective disorder. Schizoaffective disorder is a very complicated illness, and it's absolutely gut-wrenching, heart-wrenching when I've encountered this type of client with this, because schizoaffective is so schizo. The first half refers to a thought disorder, schizophrenia. Affective refers to emotions, your affect, your emotional expressiveness, and so on. And these people are afflicted with both. I counseled a man whose wife was diagnosed as having schizoaffective disorder. It's defined as a chronic mental illness blending symptoms of schizophrenia, which can include psychosis, delusions, disorganized thinking, with a mood disorder such as depression or bipolar. This illness is complex and very hard to treat, although I hope by now they have some good medications for this. Maybe Dr. Capone could tell us about this, or Dr. Andy or Dr. Capone. And she refused to take medication, which made things far worse. She attended one session only and never came back. She was in a psychotic state. She was married to one of the nicest men on the planet. You'll see in a moment why I say that. At the one session that she came to, she declared that she was leaving her husband. And she did, for no rational or justifiable reason. She wanted her independence. And she was so mentally ill that she thought just she was going to go out there and lead the life of Riley. And here comes the saddest news of the day. In the many individual sessions that followed with the husband, she never came back. He became severely depressed. He did, however, accept my suggestion to attend a particular support group I told him about that met at a local church. He reported that the meetings were helpful, and I thought he was turning a corner. I was wrong. And I will never forget our very last session. This haunts me to this day, although I do my very best to not think about it. But now that I'm talking about it, I see this man in my mind's eye. The agonized expression on his face and the faraway look in his glassy eyes still haunts me. And he said this, quote, "Oh, Fred, all I have ever wanted from the time I was young was to be married and have a family." They had 2 sons. Was to be married and have a family. And now it's gone. He even said to me, I didn't even care what I did for a living as long as I could put food on the table. What was important to me was to have a loving marriage and have kids. And now it's all gone. A few weeks after our last session, now remember, I thought he was making progress. He was going to the support group and he was saying that it was helping him. A few weeks later, I received a phone call from his sister who said that he had died by suicide. Concluding remarks, and I'll cut you loose, and I'm so sorry to keep you late. To end on a positive and hopeful note, I conclude with an emphasis on love, as I promised I would. Keep in mind that as we've been discussing all morning, mental illness places serious obstacles, indeed handicaps, on people's ability to love sacrificially and unselfishly. That being said, in a survey of, I just read about this about 2 weeks ago. This was a gift from God as I was putting the final touches on my talk. They surveyed couples who lived past the age of 100. One of the couples, they were both 107. They'd been married 70 plus years. One of the couples was married 80 years. And they were asked the obvious question, what is your secret? And the couples kept it simple yet profound. They said, we truly love each other in every sense of the word, including the biblical teaching. And what verses stand out most about love? What we hear at weddings. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through 7. Love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful. It is not arrogant or rude. Love does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrong, but rejoices in the right. Love bears all things, believes all things, endures all things. And I want to end with something I didn't plan. Going back to the prodigal son. I don't say this to brag. Everybody I know here has a prayer life of some sort. I have my extensively long prayer time in the morning and a short prayer time at night at which I kneel by my bedside. I was kneeling by my bedside last night. I had my phone turned on because when I go to sleep, I listen to, how should I say, inspiring messages. I got a call from our own dear Mark Klein, who's out in San Antonio visiting his friend. He called me because he knew I was presenting today. And he said, I wanted to call and wish you well. And he led me in a prayer. He prayed for me. I almost started crying. I said, Mark, I'm so grateful to have you as a friend. And I said, Mark, tomorrow I'm going to talk about the story of the prodigal son and about love. And I said, I think the prodigal son story should be called, the story of the loving father. And he said, no, I have a better idea. He said, it should be called the prodigal father. I said, what do you mean? He said, do you know what the word prodigal means? And, I don't like to get those kind of things wrong. At first I blurted out, oh yeah, they go out and they're good time Charlie. And he said, no. And I said, oh, I know. Don't tell me. Prodigal means going out and spending recklessly. And he said, it should be called the prodigal father, because the prodigal father gave love recklessly with total abandon, didn't even mention that his son had done him wrong. Put a robe on him and a ring on his finger, kill the fatted calf. My son was lost and is found. He was dead and now he's alive. And how appropriate it is that we celebrate. It's about the prodigal father, but I'm going to throw in the loving father. Thank you, God our Father, and thank you for listening. So I told you I had handouts.
Any questions?
Oh yeah, let's do questions. The handouts are of the top 5 benefits of creating happy marriage and the blog that I referred to. Questions? Comments? Your own thoughts?
Thank you, Fred. Thank you.
That you're married, you live longer, but also they're having pets, they can live longer. So does that equate the pets with the wife?
No, that is, well, I'd be curious how other people would answer that. That's an assist in the head. I go on date. Oh God, don't get me started on dating sites. I've been divorced 9 years. I go on dating sites, and when the women, their photos are dominated by animals, I swipe. No, I don't want to I don't want to date your dog. Thank you very much.
Well, Fred, you know my whole history pretty well, and I can tell you with marriage, when Anna and I got married, we were just fools. And
You were young.
and
Young
going
and
into
stupid.
going into that marriage, having hindsight and introspection as an older middle-aged man, I saw that I never knew what love was. In fact, I had unhealthy attachment for her. Now, having been single for 16 years and now being betrothed to a woman for the last year, I'm seeing the main issue is that we don't have a biblical understanding of how a marriage is. Because I mean, all that information is spot on. But what is lacking is the man being like Christ, giving himself up. I tell you what, Anna was one, I mean, you know, she still probably is. Very critical. It's very critical at times. And when we were younger, my defensiveness, I mean, there's literal car chases. I would want to run, I'd stonewall and I'd run, and she'd get in her car and right in my rearview mirror.
Wow.
And I just never knew how to love her like Christ loved the church because I was so focused on me.
Right.
Um,
That's very humble of you to say.
well, I was an idiot. It's easy to be humble when you can see your own foolishness. With Jennifer, she's a new believer and she's growing in the knowledge of Jesus. And there's times that she's very critical of me. There's times that two teenage boys that she thinks I'll do made a mess, and I want to get defensive. Now I saw Brady do that, or I saw Trey do that, but she'll be like convinced it was me that did. And the propensity is to defend myself, especially when you know it's not true. But you know what Christ did when he was accused? He didn't say anything. He allowed the accusers, and that's what we as men are called to do for our wives, lay our life down. The need to be right. That's all I wanted back 20 years ago. I need to make sure she knows I'm right.
Yeah.
But across the board, men don't have a clue on what Christ likeness is. And that it's not about being right. It's about protecting and honoring her heart.
Yeah.
And allowing the Holy Spirit to do his work in his time. And we lay our life down for him to do that.
Amen. Thank you, Paul. Other questions?
So,
Can I
Fred,
recommend a book just to lighten up everybody here? I read an amazing book called Why Men Don't Listen and Women Can't Read Maps. It's by two psychologists. They're called Barbara and Alan Pease. And the subtitle of this is Here's How We're Different and What to Do About It.
Oh, that's
This is an amazing book. Everybody should read it.
please say the title again.
Why Men Don't Listen and Women Can't Read Maps. Really a very nice book. You'll turn the page and say, yeah, this is me. Yeah, this is me. This is us, you know.
Why men don't listen and women can't read maps.
so, Fred, you know what a wonderful relationship our marriage is.
Yes, I do.
It
And I'm
wasn't always that.
always happy for you. Oh, it wasn't always that way?
But what had to change with me was understanding that as the head of the house, the way I need to show that was to love my wife as Christ loved the church. For me, what that means is most of the time when we disagree, I need to go with her things. Just the opposite of what we were told years ago, where the husband makes all the decisions. And that was one part.
It was a game changer
Yeah.
for you. And that's easier said than done. Because we want to be right. How should I say it? We want to. I think men are wired as problem solvers, and we think we come in here with the solution. And you know, you women, you always go by feelings, and you know, here's what you should do. You know, this is hysterical. If you haven't seen it, It's under 2 minutes long, so it won't take much of your time. On YouTube, look up, It's Not About the Nail. Sohail just gave us a really good title. It's actors acting it out. It's a husband and wife. Like I said, it's under 2 minutes. It illustrates how women, by and large, there are exceptions. I've had exceptions in the counseling office. Women need to have, a matter of fact, extensive studies way back established this. One of a woman's top emotional needs is to have her feelings validated. In other words, when I come to you and I'm feeling sad or lonely or frustrated or my job or my boss is driving me crazy, I don't need you to fix it. I need you to say, sweetheart, I'm so sorry you're going through that. What can I, let me hold you. Or what, want me to draw you a nice bath? Do you want to talk more about it? Do you want to flesh it out and talk? I'll listen. But no, men come in with this little, you should call a meeting with your boss and give him a piece of your mind. That's not what they need. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, you will, it's a hoot. YouTube, It's Not About the Nail. So you got a book title and you got a YouTube thing to watch. Yeah.
Never been married, but I've definitely been around a lot of married couples and just couples in general in my life. And they usually tend to come to me with their couple issues. I pray about it. I ask the Lord, the Holy Spirit, just say, speak to me, whatever. Now, obviously, everybody said, what's the number one thing in your marriage? Well, love. Okay, but when you break down love, what does that mean? To me, it's complete transparency. Christ was transparent with the people, with the disciples. God was transparent, with us, with every rule he ever gave us, from the 10 Commandments to how to love your wife, how to love your husband. I mean, the whole Bible is that way, right? But when we break it down, we love each other, but we don't want you to see all the dark sides of us, all of our secrets. But when you're married, you no longer are entitled to your secrets, because that other person is now a part of you. And also the second one is everybody's like, oh, marriage is 50-50. Well, I love y'all, but no, you're wrong. Because if you're only giving 50%, you're only giving half of what you should be giving. And I think the marriage should be flexible. Some days you could come in and be like, I got 100%, I'm all the way, I'm in. But then what about your spouse? He comes back from work, he's like, honey, I only got 40% tonight. I can't. Rough day, even that day at work tonight. I can't deal with the kids, I can't deal with the neighbor, I can't deal with the dog, whatever. His wife's like, baby, okay, I got you. I'm gonna step up. But then it's gotta be reciprocated on the other side. When the wife is like, honey, I can't, the kids will pull my hair out today. It's driving me insane, plus work, plus this, plus that. Husband's gotta be like, okay, I'm gonna step down and try to take up a little bit more. And then when you're both just lacking, you gotta just be there. Like we said, stop trying to fix it. Just be, and perfect. Yes.
It sounds to me like when you do marry, you're going to be very ready.
Maybe, we'll see.
Yes, Carol.
One thing that we aren't taught how to love. And I think that's a big problem in our country and in the world.
Culture.
We're just not taught how to love each other. We're taught me first. You just wait because it's me first. And you see that when people are driving. You do.
You yeah.
In the grocery store, everywhere you go, it's always me first. Get out of my way. And people can be so self-centered and so me. They don't know how to respond to somebody. But that's how we're taught in this life, it's especially what they're teaching in schools and colleges now. It's like,
yes,
you forget about everybody else.
And
So
I like telling the story about I worked for 4 years for Timberwood School, residential school for emotionally disturbed boys. And the counseling department, there were 5 of us, meet for our regular meeting. And to me, the smartest man in the room was Fred. His name was Fred too. Fred Damasco. He's since passed away. He was brilliant intellectually, but he also had such a good heart. We were talking about, now this is some of the hardest, they're not hardened criminals, but if they commit any more crimes, they're going to be in the adult jail. We were stuck in our strategizing about to help a particular boy or a type of boy. And Fred piped up and said, because the room went silent, nobody had any ideas. We were just kind of cogitating. And Fred piped up and he said, guys, you know what the problem is? No one has ever taught or demonstrated to these kids how to love.
Yeah.
That's why I still, in my seminars on the subject of love, is the most important thing.
And you know, Greg, you talk about loneliness, an epidemic, it surely is.
Oh, God.
But narcissism is also.
It is. It is. Which piggybacks right on what Daniel was saying.
Well, Fred, I want to thank you very much. And for people that want to catch up with Fred here afterwards, I'd encourage that. Couple quick housekeeping notes here. The next couple seminars, we're going to be presenting information on bipolar disorder. The January 3rd Saturday will be presented by a psychiatrist that works at Valley Health on bipolar, and then I'm hopeful maybe Fred will come and talk to us from a counseling perspective on in February on bipolar disorder. And in
They're going to get sick of me.
well, they may. We'll take a vote afterward. But and then in March and April, we're going to have Andy White here also talk about anxiety and depression. So we hope you can make. And we've started Zoom for those of you who can't make it here personally. And we're thanks to Dan and some of his efforts, we're going to be doing that. We also have support group meetings, usually the first and third Thursdays of the month at 5:30 here, and we've got an excellent book and a good group of people that they tend to invite you if you're interested. Just try it out, see what you think. We also have a website. Again, Dan is involved with putting a website together where we announce our upcoming meetings and topics. Have a lot of information on there also. We started to record our sessions, as you can see with all the cameras here today. And we have a YouTube recording of, at least we're moving in the direction each time of having a recording seminar for each of these on basically through our website. You're not alone ministry.org. It's pretty straightforward. And finally, I'd like to just close this in prayer. And again, thank everybody for taking time in your busy schedules today. Lord Jesus, thank you for our time together this morning to help us as families to lean on you for your strength and power through prayer. Always strengthen our resolve to love and understand those of our family who are afflicted with mental illness. Help us to avoid frustration, judgment, and isolation in our lives. Amen. Thank you again. And Fred, if you'll hang around for a few minutes, if anybody would like to speak to him, hopefully get a chance.
I'll be here.
Thank you all. Have a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.